daughters of thy nemesis who are praying. Thy kingdom come never.
Now say Hey, welcome back to part 3. You just heard Ghost with Ritual and Stand By Him from the Opus Eponymous record from Rise Above Records.
Yes, it is. And, well, I guess you probably already know that I'm Jason and that this is Mark.
I'm Mark.
But
if you stand by him.
If you've been listening to part 1 and part 2. And so we kind of wanted to open up the final part with arguably maybe the best record of the year.
I think it's pretty fantastic. It's... I can't remember the last time that I heard anything that remotely sounded like Blue Oyster Cult that I really liked.
Yeah, or that had not only Blue Oyster Cult, but just that vibe of like catchy 70s rock, mixed in with Satanism, yeah. and these hooks that are just like to die for, you know. I mean, the choruses, the hooks, everything about it.
It's the Night of the Witch. It's the Night of the Witch tonight. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have heard that song once and it's stuck in their head for weeks.
Singing it, yeah. I mean, obviously, the band Ghost. The band Ghost has been like not a controversial band, but a band that people have very strong opinions of one way or the other. In terms of whether they think these guys are sort of, posers or trendy or something like that, because of the fact that when they play live, they dress up in this, garb, and
he's a satanic pontiff.
The pontiff, a pope figure.
And all the rest of the band are all done up in basically robes, like monks' robes, playing guitars and shit. So,
and Fenriz, some people really respect Fenriz's opinion. Some people think Fenriz and Darkthrone are get way too much street cred or whatever. I personally, seem to gel on what a lot of the things that Fenriz seems to be kind of tuned into.
We're kind of come from the same era, and he's got his ear to the underground. I think closer than most people, even journalists and whatever. He's been in it so long that I think he's picking up on stuff that a lot of people might not.
Yeah,
and the fact that he's giving this some coverage and accolades, and that many magazines are, and I think it's just one of those rare occurrences where something's actually worth the hype.
Yeah, and these kind of the music speaks for itself, obviously, as you just heard there. I mean, that opening drum riff on Stand By Him, I mean, it's like as catchy as Grave Solace. And I mean, and Ritual just has like these great keyboard lines like mixed in. I mean, just all of it.
You never thought you'd have Dead Human Sacrifice stuck in your head.
Yeah. Oh man, it's sugary sweet. And if that's the first time you've heard Ghost, then welcome to it. You'll be singing those songs for weeks.
It's coming out of Metal Blade in January.
Yeah, it's a hard record to get a hold of. We had to pay a pretty penny to get a hold of these things. Rise Above, Lee Dorian from Cathedral's label put it out. We'll actually be hearing a couple of Rise Above records in this third part here. And for my money, it's my favorite record of the year.
I think it's my most listened to record of the year so far.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to it, it's not like a record that you've overplayed and you're just like, I got to skip past this song.
Yeah.
I listen to it straight through. It's another one of those there are records that's like 38 minutes long or something.
And,
nice length.
And obviously, in terms of influence, you mentioned Blue Oyster Cult, but the other obvious band that kind of comes to mind is Merciful Fate.
Merciful Fate, Deep Purple to some degree, and
And I even hear
Thin Lizzy. I hear a lot of the guitars.
A lot of Thin Lizzy. I hear some Posse era Amorphous.
I'm still not getting that.
Yeah, it's weird. And I catch on a couple vocal hooks, and that's it.
And then our buddy Chris said he hears a lot of Johan from Tiamat spoken stuff from Clouds, which
a little bit. I mean, they're Swedish, so who knows?
Everybody's ears are unique.
Yeah, that's true. But definitely an apropos titled record, Opus Eponymous. These guys must have known right out the gate, not to mention the cover. You as an artist were talking about how sweet the cover is.
A friend of mine down in Kentucky he's an artist as well, not necessarily a metal fan, but he's like, this is like the best cover I've seen in like 15 years.
Yeah. And it says everything, I mean, it looks like
it's like a Hammer Horror,
Hammer Horror
lobby card
like
or something.
Scooby-Doo, kind of like intro thing.
Well, it's almost the exact mansion from the opener, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it's pretty
got
awesome.
Bats hanging out,
Pretty awesome, but
good logo.
Yeah, I mean, I
think they win the award for the most classy use of an upside down cross on an album cover.
That they do, and every song is just draped in pure, unadulterated Satanism.
Yes,
that's and
70s catchy songwriting.
Yeah,
which is funny.
Yeah, so don't don't play this around your family unless your family
I think you should
is ready for it.
because then Grandma's going to be singing the altar of ritual is smells of dead human sacrifice.
But certainly a mind blower. And we were kind of talking like what can you expect from these guys next? It's going to be really pretty interesting.
I think
bar's pretty high.
Yeah, it's going to have like Star Wars kind of expectations on it. But I think since it's a short record, I think they might have thought ahead and figured out. I mean, because it's a very calculated band.
Yeah,
everything like visually, stylistically, everything's there. Musically, I have a feeling they have kind of like a trajectory planned out, and it might just be a single one-off thing. Who knows?
Yeah, that could be. If this is all we're left with, then hey, it's like that Thorns record. It's just something that stands for what it is,
And for all the kind of resurgence of like throwback metal stuff, this is another example of one that did it right, and it doesn't seem. It's reminiscent of a lot of things, but it's not at all like ripped off.
Yeah, yeah. I've never.
It's not like there's a fade riff. There's a Thin Lizzy drum line or whatever.
Yeah, I've never heard anything quite like it before. So that's why it's definitely at the top of the heap this year.
So it's on the top of my altar ritual. That's for sure.
Yes. All right. So speaking of Fenrez. And his recommendations. Let's talk about Circle the Wagons.
Well, as of let's see, I think it was Fuck Off and Die was the first. After Cult Is Alive was kind of the last kind of true Darkthrone record. I'm throwing up air quotes.
It was starting to move.
It was starting to show the sense of humor a little bit more. I think after a certain while, because they had the whole kind of interview ban where they didn't talk to anybody, and a lot of their other influences and loves are starting to show through a lot.
Sure, the old thrash stuff, the old punk stuff.
It's unadulterated enthusiasm, which the last 3 Darkthrone records have been. It took me a while to kind of like wrap my brain around exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
Not that the music's hard to penetrate, but to like because I've been into Darkthrone since Soulside Journey and followed them along the entire thing. And when I first, I guess, Fuck Off and Die, actually, I heard, what was the previous one?
Well, no, Fuck Off and Die was right after Cult Is Alive, wasn't it?
No, there's one more.
Well, there's Dark Thrones and Black Flags.
Dark Thrones and Black Flags.
But that was after Fuck Off and Die, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but that's the first one I heard. I didn't listen to Fuck Off and Die and then went back and kind of listened to that, but just the way that they're
which we heard a couple weeks ago, Canadian metal. So,
exactly. Now, I heard the Canadian metal song.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was so these last 3 records I've kind of completely embraced where they're going with it. I know a lot of people hate it. And
I like it.
I love it. And I love the fact that the guys they're continuing on with their vision of what they want to do. Why would you keep wanting to play black metal if you don't enjoy it?
Yeah,
exactly. And it's not like they're making millions of dollars. I mean, Fenris has been working at the Norwegian post office for fucking 20 years or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of that, the song we're going to play, "I Am the Working Class."
Sure.
Every day I bust my bones to get paid. I mean, it's
an appropriate song to the Great Recession of 2008.
It even affects people of the rich country of Norway.
Yeah.
But like if Dimmu Borgir are the white collar, kind of pompous executives of black metal, I think Darkthrone is the blue collar.
There you are.
Opposite end of it, keeps everything under check.
They're working on the assembly line, getting their hands
I mean,
dirty.
even in the liner notes for the album, on the opposite side of the page from where I'm the Working Class lyrics are, it's Fenris holding a tree.
Yeah. He's working in the forest, getting ready to do some hiking.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've kind of, it's weird for me because Darkthrone, I got into some of their old stuff, and then I kind of missed their middle period outside of like the couple releases in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like you and Brian kind of brought me back into it. And so I guess I didn't have as much stigma with whatever direction they were going in. And so like I've been kind of like, yeah, cool. I like punk rock. I like the kind of stuff that they're trying to do here. But I think there are some diehard Darkthrone fans who just can't wrap their heads around it.
The people that want the same sound over and over and over and over again. And this is it's a rebirth of a band that I didn't know where they could really go. And now they can go they could put out like a crust record next, and who cares?
I mean, sky's the limit. So, and I Am the Working Class, musically,
punk. It's just a punk song.
Yeah,
that's great.
I mean, it's got a great breakdown in the middle with the guitar solo and stuff. Chant, sing along, kind of chorus. I mean, even the fact that a lot of especially the British punk stuff was so class oriented.
Totally,
the Clash and all that kind of stuff, and Sex Pistols and And so, it harkens back to that whole movement, of the political lyrics, and I mean, the record itself has some really varied vocal styles and things, like Treasures
these
Will
first,
Never Befall You are pretty crazy vocals.
And the funny thing is, like, now that I don't know how many people are aware of the songwriting process of Darkthrone, but now they've even, like, for this record, Circle the Wagons actually did a comic strip of how they record and produce and all that, and there's like more videos and stuff of them now. But basically, it Fenrez and Nocturnal Culto come together. Ted Skillum, come together with basically like, okay, here's my songs, here's these songs, let's put them together. And it's weird to actually hear Fenrez singing on half the record too.
Yeah,
which previously he didn't really do a whole lot of that.
Yeah, and
outside of his satanic poetry that he used to do.
And his vocals are pretty over the top.
They're ridiculous. Yeah, they're great.
So. It's a pretty nifty record. So, and definitely if you've kind of turned your back on Darkthrone, hey, give them a try again. You might be surprised. Just be open minded about it. So.
Or if you've never listened to them before, listen to this, then go back and listen to A Blaze in the Northern Sky.
Yeah, pretty different. And then speaking of some more black metal, we've got Watain on the way. But we'll chat a little bit more about Watain. We've talked a lot about him this year, but. We'll chat a bit more. So we got Watain, and then definitely a pleasantly odd surprise at the end of this set, and we'll talk more about that when we get back. So Darkthrone's I Am the Working Class from Circle the Wagons, and then followed by some Watain and some other good stuff. That was Dillinger Escape Plan with Gold Teeth on a Bum from Option Paralysis. Watain's Four Thrones from Lawless Darkness. And then we started with I Am the Working Class from Darkthrone. So let's look at Watain first, and we'll kind of work our way into that Dillinger release. So I don't know, maybe people have heard of Watain this year. They kind of had a little bit of fanfare here and there.
I mean, 2007, Sworn to the Dark, I think was their kind of introduction to most people. It was their coming out party. Where people actually like knew the name outside of people that were really into underground black metal.
Sure.
And I think there was a lot of expectation on what this record would be, and some people were kind of disappointed. It didn't initially get a really fantastic reviews.
Grower, for sure.
It's way more complex than I think anybody initially thought when they reviewed the thing. The Waters of Ain song that we've played on a previous show.
Sure.
Was that just on the Watain show?
Yeah, episode 101, which we started our whole second century of shows off with Watain. That's how important.
But that song, it kind of sums up. It's the whole culmination of everything they are. Just unbelievable song. You know, like 14 and a half minutes long, or with Hank McCoy from
McCoy.
What did I say?
Hank McCoy.
Carl McCoy from
Henry McCoy from X Factor.
What the hell's the damn band now? Field of Nephilim.
Yeah.
Jesus, so many facts to keep straight in my head right now.
We've been pumping a lot. We've been pumping a lot of.
Well, I've got my neurotic notes too. That looks like the scrawlings of a nut job.
Yeah, mine are even more ridiculous. So, But yeah, and this is a song, Four Thrones, that we didn't play when we did that Watain show. So we figured, let's give that a little feature. And
everybody's heard Reaping Death and, a lot of the others. So.
And it's got a great, Nagofar kind of black metal, tremolo riff that's
it's pretty much par for the course for them. They haven't, I can't really see them hitting any misses unless they go down like the Burzum road where they want to just do all electronic music, which I really don't see happening.
Or like symphonic or something pompous kind of stuff. Which I hope I don't see them doing.
They're filling kind of a hole that's been left from Dissection. Yeah, really, and I don't think people really have the comparison too often, but it's very, very Dissection. I mean, Eric even toured with Dissection for the what was it, the Rankos? That's right. Tour. So yeah, I don't know what more to say. I've got a sticker, a Lawless Darkness sticker on my car, if that tells you anything. I like it.
And obviously this got a lot of fanfare. It was the number 2 record of the year.
Yes.
Yeah, number 2 in Decibel, and Sworn to the Dark I think was number 2 or 3 back in 2007. So they've got a pretty nice track record with them, and
they're kind of an unlikely band to gain popularity, just given how over the top,
how they're disgusting they are,
their imagery, their live shows, and everything, and how kind of like blatant.
But they're honest, and when it comes down to it, people respect honest music on some level.
Yeah, and in the tradition of short frontmen.
Yeah.
Dio was tiny, but he had a big heart. As does
Udo was tiny. Yeah. I'm sure Eric would really love being compared to.
Hey, I wouldn't.
He probably would actually.
He probably wouldn't. Who wouldn't want to be mentioned that sentence? But.
Exactly. And then Dillinger Escape Plan, Option Paralysis. This, like I think Lawless Darkness, maybe underwhelmed people at first. And
I think at this point, people might have had Dillinger off their fill of them.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we've seen them on enough covers of magazines. Okay, they're great. With Greg, I forget his last name.
Pucciato,
on vocals, they've kind of had like a renaissance. And I never cared for their earlier stuff with Dimitri on vocals.
Really?
It was like, it's noise. It's just too much. It's too obnoxious. And this kind of fills that hole of, Faith No More's not around anymore.
Yeah.
And, I think people just kind of had their fill, but the record is really, really good.
And if there was any record this year for me that was a grower, it was definitely Dillinger Escape Plan. I feel like I got like
saying that,
Yeah, I got into this in like these kind of really strange increments because the record as a whole, I mean, it takes all the complexities that Calculating Infinity had and it kind of filters them through like the melodicism that you started to hear on like Miss Machine and Earworks and things like that. But they have a new drummer now, Billy Reimer, and he does some pretty fantastic things that you can kind of even hear in this. Not that the old drummer was bad, but
no, but I think the old drummer was a little stiff.
Yeah, this guy more
he swings, and he's definitely got a more organic vibe to his drumming,
and just the compositional style that Ben Weinman has been able to pull off, and what the ideas that he's had have been sort of scattered the last couple records, and I like those last couple records quite a bit, and I think there's moments on them that are purely brilliant. But the part that wasn't really happening was the cohesiveness of it, and part of what made Calculating Infinity so like appealing. And I know you said you didn't get into it as much, but I had to review it and interview the band around that era, so I kind of delved into it pretty deeply, and it did fit together in this really effed up sort of way. Everything sort of flowed from one song to another, and even though it was in like the midst of this like chaotic kind of abstract quality or something, much like we were talking about with when we were talking Trout Mass Replica with the Gorguts Obscure album. It has that sort of kind of same appeal, that and rest in peace, Beefheart just died a couple days ago, so as we recorded this probably a few weeks later from when you hear this, but that melodicism that he was experimenting with on some of the songs, like Sick of Sunday and things like that, it was great, but those were the only songs I really cared about. I feel like on like the last couple records were the songs that were doing the
singles,
the
like
No More
Black Bubblegum and some of the other ones.
Yeah, and some of that stuff. And I wasn't really as into like the sort of the Calculus core, like fast, intense kind of stuff. Yeah, because I feel like they had done that so well in Calculating. Where do you go from there once you've sort of like mastered that? And now it's all seamless. And this album it's 10 songs. There's no filler songs really. Everything kind of works and just complements itself and builds really towards the end. Parasitic Twins is probably my favorite song on the record, even though it's probably the most melodic and mellowest of it. I wanted to play Gold Teeth on a Bum because it has some of the harder elements mixed in with the melodic elements. It's got 3 different vocal hooks in it, they're completely separate.
Yeah, really like catchy vocal hooks.
Yeah, and I mean Puchato's coming to his own. I mean, Stanko, Kevin, who writes for Decibel, said when he did, he wrote the little write-up for this record, he said this is probably going to be looked at in 2012 as one of the best records of 2010, but it's just taking a while to sink in for some people, and I don't know if it's the label change. I don't know if it's because, like you said,
I think they kind of hit critical mass.
Yeah,
and people just like, okay, enough.
Yeah, and I think if you give this a shot and look at it as just a record and put it on and listen to it as just a musical record, it's not saturating in the way that the last ones have. Maybe oversaturated people or overexpose themselves,
Yeah.
Which sounds funny talking about Dillinger saying that they're overexposed because all you heard was when the fuck are they going to make another record after Calculated Infinity? It took them like 6 years to make a follow-up. And, Earworks was 2007. It's not like they're putting out a record every year. But I think it's just the ideas are so maybe complex that it takes a few years to digest a Dillinger record.
Well,
completely.
they've been touring for Option Paralysis almost an entire year now.
Have they? Yeah. And I mean, I'd like to see him on this. I haven't seen Dillinger in years.
I've seen him once.
I don't think I've seen him with Puchato.
I did. I saw it at the Contaminated Festival.
Did you see? Yeah. I've seen him a couple times with Dimitri, and that was like mind blowing because Dimitri was a scary dude.
Greg was just he wasn't scary, but he was very enthusiastic.
He's super huge too.
Well, he's kind of a short guy, but he's ripped.
Yeah,
and he climbs walls like Spider-Man and stuff.
That's awesome.
It's pretty insane.
So give it a shot again. I mean, this has been one that sat with me as much as that Deftones record, as much as that Danzig record, in terms of just like songs that get stuck in my head, almost like bubblegum songs, like the Ghost record, and that's really the true testament, a song, songs that you'll be like humming in your head, like, oh man, I want to hear like that vocal hook in that song, definitely one of my favorites of the year. I'd probably put it in my top 3 or 4 of the year. And we've got something decidedly different next, but a band that's kind of...
They've been around quite a while, actually.
Yeah, and equally is known for sometimes the distance in between some of their records, sometimes, or what the hell's going to happen next.
I think, we're talking about Electric Wizard, of course. And I think the first time they really kind of garnered any kind of really big success was Dope Throne. That was the record for them. It was huge. And then they seem to kind of be going through these... Actually, I think the newest issue of Decibel, it should be out by the time this is.
It will be.
This is gone. It's got Electric Wizard on the cover, and Jess Osborne in there is basically saying that some bands start out with a strong record and then can never follow it up. And he's like, we started out with a shit record, and we're slowly trying to build toward that great record.
Yeah.
And so they went with Dope Throne, and then Witch Cult Today. 3 records after, or 2 records after that?
There was We Live and
Let Us Pray or something.
Let Us Pray, yeah.
And those are a little lackluster for me. I never really got into those that
Let
much.
Us Pray I got into quite a bit at first, but I don't listen to it that much anymore.
Yeah, like Witch Call Today's a fantastic record.
Yeah.
And then, following this up,
I feel like Witch Call Today might have been on our first best of list.
It might have been.
But
Black Mass is pretty stellar record, and it's just that continual kind of like shift forward where like you don't necessarily think this band's gonna go, but it actually has much more pop sensibilities to it.
But it's really draped in fuzz and draped in
dirty. I was telling Jason, it reminds me of like a live, like almost like a live MC5 record that was recorded at the Grandy Ballroom. It's got so much effects and everything. It's just like oozing with drugs.
It's like a 60s garage rock band meets Black Sabbath meets like San Francisco psychedelia. I mean, it's like it's a weird kind of mix. But
and I think a lot of this, I think the direction, I think Liz, the other guitar player songwriter, I think has a fair amount to do with it, because since she joined the band, I've noticed that definitely it's either that or she's. Because I think they're dating or something. Or just whatever the case is, she's had a good influence on the band.
Sure. And the band for a long time was like teetering on the edge of like destruction. I mean,
they've had a consistent lineup.
Kind of you know,
they've had the same drummer and a new bass player, but they've had that kind of core group of the three for a while.
For a couple albums now.
Yeah. So, and then the song we're gonna play, "Turn Off Your Mind's" got one of the catchiest, I think, vocal lines they've ever done.
Sure.
You know, keeping up with Dillinger's Escape Plan.
It's in the mix of like this like
it's not
cornucopia of sounds.
Yeah, it's not at all pretty, but it's as, you know, if you're tripping balls and your dad comes home or something, it's that kind of vibe.
Yeah. So it's got some sleep elements to it, I think, you know, too, with the dope smoker.
But I've heard, there's been some complaints about the production, and I have no problem with the production at all. It's just incredibly saturated.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a cool record. It's just, it doesn't hit as immediately. Like, I remember, you know, you had the Satanic Rites of Drugula and a couple other tunes that came out right away from Witch Cult, you know, like, and grabbed you and hooked you. This one, you gotta like, you know, comb through like the dope mist or something, you know, like to really like find the nugget, the juicy nugget in the center, you know, the caramel in the center of the chocolate or whatever. But it's a great record, and it's one that you know, I think I'm probably going to need some months in 2011 to continue to absorb.
Well, I think for your trek for the holidays, I think you should listen to a little bit of this on the way.
Yeah, I've still got the couple of our podcasts to probably listen to too.
Yeah, you can
I save for the car ride, so yeah. And then so we got some Electric Wizard on the way, and then we've got something decidedly un-Electric Wizard that will follow, but we'll let you kind of be pleasantly surprised by that. So enjoy Turn Off Your Mind from Black Masses.
Today we just heard Blind Guardian, yes, Blind Guardian.
The Road of No Release from At the Edge of Time.
And then preceding that was Electric Wizard, Turn Off Your Mind from the Black Masses record on Rise Above, which...
our second Rise Above record.
A label to look out for.
Yeah. Well, they've been kind of doing their thing, but
they've been hit and miss.
Yeah.
Or it's like 2 years without putting something out.
And plus, their stuff's so goddamn hard to find. Sometimes.
Well, we're impatient. We can't wait the 4 months it takes for a domestic release.
No,
so.
Man,
we're true fans.
This is globalization. Why should we have to wait for things that we know exist in other places?
Copyright law. That's why.
Yeah. Fuck that. Speaking of things that are good in other places. Blind Guardian, Germany's finest import in the last 20 years or so, and
don't discount Primal Fear, but
I don't know. I don't know if Primal Fear is the track record to match what Blind Guardian's done.
I don't know. They sure make me happy.
This record, this was a surprise. This was one thing. I know I've talked to a couple other people who said, I didn't even know a new Blind Guardian record was out, and it was one.
Wasn't
of those
a whole
things.
lot of fanfare, I'll tell you that.
I kind of just walked into a record store one day. I was like, oh, hey, and I was kind of like, oh, is it a single? Mm-hmm. No, it's full length. Fuck, it's Blind Guardian. I love Blind Guardian. I'll try it, And the last couple, Twist of the Myth and Night at the Opera have been really hit or miss. They have some great songs on them, but as a consistent whole, they don't hold up as well, and they've sort of lacked some of the energy of that like mid 90s, kind of late 90s sort of golden period, the imaginations.
But it seems like they lost a little bit of the momentum, but they made up for it with orchestration.
Yeah, and complexities and things like that. And I think they kind of got too proggy almost in a way, and then they've come back, in a way. In a song like Road of No Release, that you just heard, I mean, it's mid-paced, but it has these like moments that feel like Nightfall in Middle Earth. You could be in 1998 all over again.
I think the Hansi's vocals, they're not being so like, it doesn't seem like there's like 15 choirs behind him anymore. It's just kind of like back how it was like in the early days, where it was him with backing vocals, basically. Yeah,
and I mean the production's still there and brilliant, obviously, as you heard, but at the same time, it has a more organic nature to it in a way. They're like allowing the guitar work to be intricate, but yet short and to the point almost, like get those hooks in there. You don't have to
riffs, the riffs are simple, but then they're still going off on solos, which everybody kind of expects that, but it seems like they kind of throttled it all back a little bit. Like, we could use all those riffs and make 3 songs instead of 1.
And just like, when talking about like a Ghost or like a Darkthrone or something like that, it's good to know that there's a band out there that's able to do this the right way, and Blind Guardian was always sort of relied on as like sort of the last line of defense in power metal, which there wasn't a whole lot in front of Blind Guardian.
They might be the only line of defense as far as my taste is concerned.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't listen to power metal really anymore, and I don't even know if I would consider them power metal at this point.
I just think they're heavy metal.
They're heavy metal. Yeah. They're kind of like what Death was doing on Sound of Perseverance. They're just kind of like they've evolved so far beyond like what the basic kind of.
Well, they're like Maiden. They're an institution.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice to know that there is this sort of second generation Maiden that's gonna maybe be able to survive and put out records that are consistent. Because
how many studio records have they had out? Do you know?
Boy, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is probably 9 or 10. Okay. Just without even looking, you know. So, and they've got a few live ones in there and some different things. So I mean, they're getting up there. And they don't put records out like every couple years. I mean, they're like,
Twist of the Myth was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, probably 3 years ago, and then Night of the Opera was like 5 years before that. That was like 2002.
Yeah, I was still working at the record store at that
point. Reviewed that. We were still doing Eclipse. I did an interview for that record. That's how long ago that was. Yeah. So I mean, there you go. So, these guys are few and far between. And then before that, 98 was Nightfall and things like that. Yep. But this is really taking some of the elements of Nightfall and Imaginations from the Other Side, which is this kind of, speed metal, heavy metal, power metal masterpiece, and kind of taking some of those elements. Now, it's not perfect. There's a couple songs on there that are average, but even average Blind Guardian is better than 99% power metal, so that's a nice kind of breath of fresh air. But all the stuff that was kind of going on at the end of that song with the Hansi kind of doing the I mean, that's like that's kind of stuff that you want to hear when you hear Blind Guardian. And I feel like they were like going away from that for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if they were trying to like escape their legacy, or they kind of thought they had to keep upping the ante or something. But
it almost seemed like they were trying to
maybe outdo themselves or something, you know. I mean,
which is kind of tough because
Nightfall's probably one of, we were talking about Nightfall, probably in scope is one of the most like ambitious records that's ever been pulled off.
It's the kind of record that somebody would have done a documentary about how the band went nuts doing it.
Yeah, you know? but they seemed like they were cool after that. You know, like I interviewed him on that tour and around that time, and he was, you know, happy and pleased with how everything had kind of turned out. And 90% of bands that attempt to do something like that are just going to fail miserably. It's going to be kind of a joke. I mean, you look at, you know, and no offense to the Priest, but what they tried to do with like Nostradamus, and it's like it didn't work, you know, like for me and for my sensibilities and stuff. And I'm willing to give Priest some slack to do that kind of stuff. But you know, I mean, there's very few like Operation Mindcrimes or Pink Floyd The Walls. You know, for every one of those, there's like 10 shitty versions of that just don't work at all.
Usually the idea of a concept record kind of turns my stomach.
Sure. But when you listen to Nightfall, it works, you know. And there's elements on here, the melodicism's there, combined with some of the speed from Imaginations, and hey, kudos, glad to have you guys back, you know. So, and Grindcore Coon, who's done some podcasts with us, the Melvins, I think was one of the last ones he was on with us. You know, he saw him live a few weeks ago, and you know, neither of us could make it. And he said it was pretty sweet. So that's that. Electric Wizard and Blind Guardian together again for the first time.
Wow, two opposite ends of
the world. Sort of almost like anti-production and then like total production. Yeah. So, and speaking of worlds meeting and mixing together, kind of a great way, I think, to send out the year of 2010. I think this is my favorite serious record. You know, if I wanted like if this was like the thinking record for me, the
academic one,
this would be it. You know, Ghost is like the fun record, and this is kind of that record when I think intellectually about how metal is created and like what I want the future of metal to sort of push towards. I think of, you know, Enslaved, and I think.
Well, the funny thing, I went back to listen to last year's episode. Was Vertebrae from last year?
2 years ago.
Okay, well, listen.
Vertebrae was up there
2 years ago, and listening to what we were talking about Vertebrae, and we were both like, "Well, they've really got to up the game because otherwise, where are they going to go?"
Yeah,
this is kind of
because Vertebrae had some lackluster moments. It was good, but it was
good, and it made a lot of top lists and everything for the year it came out. But this record, I think they kind of figured things out. I mean, with the clean vocal thing. My policy is if you can't do it well, don't do it at all. Yeah. And they've done it sparingly in the past or for effect. And right now, between Gritla and Herbrand, the guitar or the keyboard player, they've got some really impressive clean vocals on the thing. Sure. And Ivar keeps upping the ante on
his compositional style is incredible.
It's getting simpler and simpler, but yet it still feels like Enslaved.
But the progressive elements are still there, but they're not like, hey, look, I'm being proggy. It's just so like it's seamless.
It's like the mindset going into it that's progressive. The music itself, it's very stripped down when you go back and listen to it.
And especially this song, the Lightning, and the record, by the way, is Axioma, Ethica, Odini. And it's a combination of a couple of different elements that they were kind of coming up with, and I know they combined like basically two phrases together and just said, "There you go."
What is it? The Ethic of Odin?
Yeah, but it was they had like two different ideas for album titles or for song titles or something like that, and that's why there's two separate songs on the record. One is Axioma, and then the other is Ethica, Odin. I think Odin's Ethics, and then I'm not for sure. I can't remember what Axioma is.
I don't remember either.
But I remember reading the interview, and they kind of explained it all and stuff. But, this record, I mean, I've played for people who were casual sort of Enslaved fans, and they were just like, wow. There's some, and I don't want to say overt, but there's moments that connect to like the I guess epicness that people find in like bands like Opeth and stuff that are there. There's some of the intricate melodies and just the and things that have been on Enslaved records. I mean, this is nothing new. This is some of the things that they were doing on Isa and Below the Lights and Rune and even to some extent, Vertebrae. But even like going back to Eld and stuff. But it's like it's all there,
Well, something that I was actually pleasantly surprised is how much old Enslaved I heard as well. Like the ferocity and viciousness of like Gritla's vocals he's one of my favorite death metal vocalists, black metal, whatever you want to call them, vocalists, and to hear a lot of that still front and center, that there's no risk of that going away.
Yeah, and my favorite Enslaved song, because of the brutality mixed with melody vocals, is Rune, the title track. And the way he comes in on that chorus when the music is so like bright in a way, but he's like so brutal,
so grating.
It reminds me of his vocals on Lightning, which starts with this great, really like majestic, clean vocal,
pushing themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you said I think that this is like the furthest that he's pushed his abilities and things like that, and then he comes like in with just like searing, like, and it's great because that's what it needs to be. That's what we want. We don't want them to turn into something like clean shaven. We still want that roughness, and we want that stuff, but we don't mind if they advance forward musically.
And it totally makes sense because we were just listening to Theater of Tragedy, which. Wow, does that not hold up at all? The Beauty and the Beast vocals, the female and the male, or the male and death and clean vocals.
Yeah,
and as a rule, I try to avoid that altogether. But Enslaved does it really well, and I trust their judgment on. Yeah,
Michael from Opus has really come along as well in that sort of regards, and even like some of the things you even hear, not so much anymore, but like with Catatonia when they would. Do some of the harsher stuff like on the Ghost of the Sun and things like that.
Viva Emptiness.
Yeah, so if it works, do it. But don't force it. And like I mean, your rule is perfect.
I wish more people would abide by it. It's so simple.
There's a lot of people I just don't give a shit about their clean vocals.
There's so many records that would have been good records if they would have just stuck with their death metal vocals or got a new vocalist.
Yeah,
like Soilwork is a band that their first 3 records I think are really good.
Yeah, their clean stuff just sounds. It's just not there for me. It's like one-dimensional or two-dimensional, or it's too polished. It's just not natural.
I don't understand. But there's a lot of people that love that stuff. So
yeah. But so I don't know what. So for you, Ghost probably. If you in hindsight,
that's my gut reaction right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess my gut is somewhere between Ghost and Enslaved. I guess but. Ask me on a Tuesday, it might be different. Who knows on a Wednesday? But
I don't know. There's a lot of good records. So
it was a strange year, but a good year. And I think a record like Enslaved kind of summarizes all the divisive elements that were kind of going on.
But the one thing we didn't have was a straight up death metal record that was unbelievable. I've heard.
I've heard that Immolation record was pretty good.
I don't own any Immolation.
Just didn't get into it as much.
It's like
I like Dawn of Possession. I've heard it's like that, but. Okay. There wasn't anything.
Well, I guess like Black Breath.
Yeah,
it's a death metal record.
That's Swedish death metal in a sense.
What I want. Energy. It's raw.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking over our list. There wasn't much there, and we're big death metal fans. So
yeah.
But Noah's Fixes. I guess the Hail of Bullets was a pretty good death metal record. For kind of straightforward death stuff. But weird.
Hooded Menace is pretty good for doomy death stuff.
Yeah. But. Definitely let us know what you thought of everything. We're going to close things out here with Lightning from Enslaved, which was the closing track from that record. And I have a feeling, my hunch tells me that this might show up as number 1 on the Terrorizer list. That's just my gut reaction.
I just hope Dimo Borgir doesn't show up at all, because that record's a steaming pile of crap.
And I'm every time I think of Enslaved now, I'm going to think of Missing Enslaved because of that fucking venue. Put them on an hour earlier than they were supposed to, and getting there just in time to see Dimu shitstorm. Take a shitstorm.
We go out and buy some merch from Enslaved and Gritla and Hairbender right there. Yeah. I was so crestfallen I couldn't even say anything to him. I was like,
what are we gonna say? Good show.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we just missed you guys. We fucking love you.
Problem.
But rumor has it Enslaved is going to be coming through and doing their own headlining tour and stuff. But
thank Odin for that, man.
Yeah. Thank Odin. And maybe they'll coincide. Maybe they can do like a Entomb Wolverine Blues crossover with the Thor movie this summer. Could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know. They've done the ballet. They've done it all. So who knows?
But let us know what you thought. Shoot us an email at requiempodcast@gmail.com. Leave us some comments on iTunes, rating that really helps us kind of get word out there. Check us out on Facebook.
Check us on Facebook. If you really like the show, hey, why not donate to the show?
Sure.
It makes you feel good, and it helps us with our operating costs.
It's the new year, and we got to pay New Year's of costs.
Yes, and as of the 4th.
We've got a lot of new merch as well. We got the traveling coffee mug, which
we have iPhone 4 cases as well.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff, and T-shirts and different things like that. So
I was thinking about making a skateboard, but I don't think anybody will buy it.
Yeah, that's true. If you want a skateboard, a special order, let us know.
Me know. Yeah.
We can design something up. But it's been a good year, and 2011, I'm hoping it will match 2010. I mean,
well, I've already got one good release for 2011.
Is that the Trap Them?
Trap Them's
it's
quite good.
Pretty solid. So, but let us know if you disagreed with some of our thoughts or we missed something. We're always up for reconsidering.
Or for debating, or everybody's got their own opinion, and that's why we do the show.
Sure.
Because if you just want to hear your own opinion, you'd just talk to yourself.
Exactly. And 2011, we got some cool things coming up on the way. Obviously, the greatly promised unanimated show is coming down the road. I know we've had a lot of requests for that. We've had requests for some Exodus, Overkill, things like that. But hopefully we're going to have some special shows too, like some kind of just off the beaten path stuff that
we should have some guests joining us as well. I won't necessarily say because I don't know when it'll happen.
Yeah, so we have a very special guest coming.
A Napalm Death expert.
Yeah.
We'll be approaching Napalm Death from his very expert lens.
Yeah. So, and we've got some. If you enjoyed the MC5 and the punk show, then you look forward to
some other non necessarily metal, but if you have good taste in music and you're interested in musical history, where things come from,
we've actually had a lot of requests to do some non-metal podcasts, just like our guide to like some different non-metal things from like some pretty hardcore fans. I know Rishi and some other people have said they'd be way down for that. So if you have like some more, I guess that's such a wide open idea that like I don't even know how to like approach that, because we do listen to a lot of non-metal stuff. It's just, what the fuck are we
not a whole
do?
lot of it's current
20 songs that we love that are non-metal, or I mean,
really.
So if you have like a more constructive idea for something like that, or just an idea of some metal bands that you'd like to see us cover that you think we could do worthy,
because we'd like to avoid Sweden for a little while, except for unanimated.
Because we owe it to you.
Sweden's kind of our homeroom right now.
Yeah. But we've been pretty good lately. We've stuck around Canada for a while, and
I'm really happy with the Canada shows.
So, and I know we need to get back to Neurosis because we had a lot of positive reactions to our au revoir of our Neurosis Nuggets or whatever. Do one record every so often.
Oh yeah. It's been a while since we did that one. So,
anyways, for 2010 to 2011.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, I'm Jason,
and I'm Mark,
and this is Enslaved, Lightening.